Hello everyone, I'm Iris, migration agent for BridgeAus, and today we're going to talk about pathways to registration as a nurse in Australia. We have another video about pathways to migration for nurses. We're going to put the link to that video, so if you want to know more about skills assessment and which occupation you choose and everything else, you can check on that video. This will basically be about the OBA pathway, or if you want to study the Bachelor of Nursing. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to do a short introduction about the pathways to registration, briefly explain the OBA and everything else. And at the end, Johanna will come and summarize everything that we've seen here. What are the registration requirements? To be a nurse here, everyone needs to be registered. You need to be registered with the medical board, with APRA. There's two ways of meeting the registration requirements. You can complete a qualifying degree in Australia, either a bachelor or master, or you can do the outcome-based assessment. If you are completing a bachelor in here, normally the full bachelor is 3 years. If you have previous studies as a nurse back in your home country, you might be able to do a 1 or 2 year Bachelor of Nursing. You need to be registered, and there are other requirements that you might have to go through to be able to do a 1 year or 2 year Bachelor of Nursing. The other option is to do a Master of Advanced Nursing. There's some masters that are qualifying pathways to become a nurse. That's generally 2 years. The other pathway, if you're not going to study in here, is the outcome-based assessment, also known as OBA. So the outcome-based assessment is a 3-stage process. First, you do a previous assessment where you're going to say where you study, what has been your work experience and everything else. There's a fee to do the initial assessment, and there's also 2 parts of orientation. The first part must be taken before you complete the second examination. I'll go through the examinations before. And so the first step is taking the multiple choice question. That exam is the exam that is done. It's outsourced by NCLEX. It's an exam about your nursing competences. If you pass that exam, then you will qualify to do the next phase, which is the Objective Structural Clinical Exam, also known as the OSCE. To take that exam, that exam is taken into it's a practical assessment of your skills as a nurse. So this is the OSCE. It's done in Adelaide. You go through a clinical setting and you have to answer questions based on that. So there are additional registration standards that you must meet before you can be registered as a nurse. So they'll do a criminal history check on you. You also need to meet the minimum language proficiency threshold, which is PT65 on all bands, or the equivalent in another test such as IELTS. If you're doing a repeat registration, you have to have continual professional development. So there's a few courses that you need to do throughout the year prior to your registration, but that's only for repeat registration. That will not apply for your first registration. You also need recency of practice. That is 450 hours of clinical practice within the last 5 years. Of course, if you just graduate in a Bachelor of Nursing or a Master, then you're not required to have the recency of practice. But if you're going through the OBA pathway, then you need this to meet this requirement. And the last requirement is that you need to have arrangements of professional indemnity insurance. And this is basically the APRA registration standards. Next, we're going to see an interview with Vina, and she'll talk about how the process went with her.
So entry requirement, it has been discussed, but what's the comparison between OBA and studying? So both would need that you have completed a bachelor's degree of nursing in your home country, and you have been issued an RN registration from your country of origin. For example, in the Philippines, yung may PRC ka dapat. Okay? If you're studying nursing, ito yung nursing that is just 1 year. Okay? Of course, if it's 2 years or 3 years, if it's a 3-year course, the usual Bachelor of Nursing here, you don't really need the Bachelor of Nursing in the Philippines. This is for the 1 year. Okay, because that's what we're comparing. OBA, you do the exams, or you study Bachelor of Nursing here in Australia. Okay? English requirements, of course, there should be PTE academic of at least 65 or equivalent. You can do IELTS, you can do, which is 7, or OETB. There's the requirement for recency of practice. It says in the APRA website, minimum of 450 hours within the last 5 years. So that means if it's over 5 years, then you cannot satisfy that. When studying sa pag-aaral, in our experience, because we do enroll, we are a partner of Deakin University. So we can enroll students there. If you want to study Bachelor of Nursing, you should have that work experience in the last 5 years. Okay, 6 months to 1 year. They would check where's that experience from. They might interview you as well. But if you just graduated Bachelor of Nursing and recently gained your PRC, your licensing, then you don't need that recency of practice kasi very recent pa yung knowledge mo in nursing because you just finished Bachelor of Nursing in the Philippines. Another, ito naman, it's been listed for the APRA website. Again, criminal history, yung mga NBI and stuff like that. Indemnity insurance arrangements. So, may mga ganyan silang requirements. For studying, syempre, you'll have to apply for a student visa because you will be studying here. You have to satisfy the genuine temporary entrant criteria and the criteria for the visa. So, kulang ng iyong requirement. Genuine temporary entrant means that you have to justify, you have to demonstrate to the Department of Home Affairs that you don't intend to live here permanently, that you have ties in your country, that the course that you're taking up is very much related to the course that you've taken up in the Philippines. This one is really related kasi nga you cannot get in if you don't have that Bachelor of Nursing anyway. Steps for OBA. There's the self-check and portfolio. Yun nga, mayroong fees doon. NCLEX exam. And the OSCE. NCLEX is yung multiple choice question, yung MCQ na sinasabi nila. And OSCE is the practical exam. So there are stations that you have to go through and you'll be assessed in each station. So, OBA for exam. Studying, it's easier, I guess, because you just have to enroll, you pay your tuition fees, apply for student visa. Once you get it, you come here, you attend all your classes, and you complete the course. So it seems like it's very easy. But of course, if you're not used to studying here in Australia, it might be difficult as well. So most of our clients go through the studying route because I think for them it's easier. That's the 1 year. But some of them would also go through the 2-year Bachelor of Nursing so that they can get a graduate visa. Because if it's just 1 year, they don't have that option. Okay, then they'll have to enroll another course again, apply for another student visa. Okay, so those are the steps. We go to the costs. Yan. This is the most frequently asked question. Magkano ba? How much is it? So, for OBA, there are many steps and then you are charged per step. So that the self-check, portfolio, assessment, and orientation, that's 410. That's when the first part. And then from there, if you're eligible, then they'll tell you to do the NCLEX exam. So, Pearson VUE. Okay? Yan daw yung cost, $200 plus 150 US dollars. Now, when you pass your NCLEX, then you'll be invited to apply naman. Schedule your OSCE. All right. So again, when you look at it, it's like, okay, those are the steps, but there's more to it. NCLEX, yung number of questions niyan, I can't really determine how many. But I was told, kasi nag-interview na rin tayo, we've interviewed someone or people who went through NCLEX, all right? Mga nurse din yan. So sabi, I asked how many questions, the maximum questions for NCLEX is 135. Okay. But then, and that's for 3 hours. But then this nurse told me that sometimes at 75 questions pa lang, it can stop. So it already knows, it calculates that you failed. Right? So parang unfair naman. 75 pa lang. Failed ka na. But anyway, so ganun daw. That's why there's no set of number of questions. It depends on your knowledge and your ability. Mahirap daw yung NCLEX. And, NCLEX, I've known NCLEX before because there were many registered nurses in the Philippines who wanted to go to the US. So the good news is, if you plan to go to the US and then may NCLEX ka na, you can transfer it to APRA. Pwede daw yun, matanggap ng APRA. Okay? So the one that we interviewed, she's a registered nurse. She's based in Canberra. Ngayon, nasa Canberra siya. She initially did her NCLEX para daw sa New York. Pero pwede daw i-transfer niya. It took her 2 months. Okay, so while discussing the table, I'm also discussing some practical experience that the clients, went through. Okay. OSCE, right. So that's $4,000, and that's here in Adelaide. So what does that mean? If you're still overseas, you have to apply for a visitor visa to come here to take that. So, syempre, in that case, because you're not here, you have to apply for the visa fee. 100 plus lang yan, 165. Just put 200 because, things can change. Travel cost, if your flight is $2,000, maybe a lot, $1,000 for your accommodation. I suggest, don't just go for 2 days, maybe a week, because you might be wanting to take a review. May mga review kasi eh. So there are review. Pwedeng review yan for NCLEX or review for OSCE. A lot of these nurses who went through that, they suggested that you go for the review, so that it's, you'll be more confident when you do the exam. Okay, so in total, so I've just totaled it at $14,000. So that's for everything. But then, if you don't pass, then you have to repeat it, right? So, can be expensive. That's why you have to do the review. Now, for studying, mga 37 to the last time I checked for Deakin University 1-year program. I've just put in here 38,000. Living cost in Australia is $22,000. So if you don't intend to work, you should have that money. Or even if you plan to work, you should still have that money, because just in case you don't get a job, right? Visa fee is 600 plus. I've just put in 700 there. That's the student visa fee. Health insurance, that should cover you for a year. When you have a course that's a year, you're given plus 2 to 3 months for the duration of your stay, for your student visa. For example, if your course ends in November or December, you started in February, you have until the 15th of March the following year to stay here. Okay? Travel costs, airfare, a total of $64,000. So you can see the difference. Ang mahal mag-aral dito. It's very expensive. But it's just that ito, 14,000. But what if you don't pass it? Then you have to repeat it again. So what? If you're on a visitor visa, you come back again? That's expensive and maybe more nerve-wracking. But with studying, kasi you're taking courses, you have exams and stuff, like not exam like this, but assessments. So if you can pass your studies, your Bachelor of Nursing, then at the end of it, you can get the registration. Okay? Timelines for studying, it's very clear. It's a year plus 2 months nga here, and then you have to do your registration. For the OBA, there's the self-check. From the time you submit it, it takes 12 weeks for them to get back to you. The NCLEX, you have to schedule that. So it depends where you are. See what's the available time for you to book in at Pearson VUE. And then the result comes out after 6 weeks. Now, the OSCE result is 8 weeks, but then there's a limited number of people that can do the practical exam here in Adelaide. So it can take you time to get that schedule, and then plus 8 weeks pa, right? So 26 weeks, that's half a year, right? 6 months, and that's just based on the results after taking it. Wala pa dyan yung waiting time mo, yung booking time mo. So maybe it can take 6 months, yung pinakamabilis, walang waiting time yun, to 12 months. Okay? And then you have to then plan your trip here. But some people do this while they're studying here. Okay? So, nag-aaral na sila ng ibang course, not nursing. Maybe they're taking up Diploma of Mental Health or any health-related course, and then they still do this. All right? So, I guess you then have to think about, mas okay ba yon mag-student visa ko? Then that means you're still paying for the student visa again, and then your tuition fee for that course, right? But at least you're already here. So, kahit ilang take, nandito ka na. So, that's how you would really decide anong gusto mo, mas madali, less pressure, but it's expensive. Or the cheapest ever, it's cheap. Actually, I just remembered the three-month program, nurse bridging program, ganyan din ang price, 14,000. But it's not as, hindi ganitong exam. They used to be 1 month of classes and then 2 months sila na sa practical sa hospital. They still have that practical exam, but I think that would be easier than OBA. So that's how you decide. And then after that, you apply for your registration. When you're registered, then that's when you can have your, hang on, let me just check this. When you're registered, then that's when you can apply for your PR visa. Let me just check if my video is still working. It's still here. Okay. So that's basically that. It's just a comparison between the two. It's not about the visa pathways, but your registration pathway, because that's very important for registered nurses who are planning to come here in Australia. If you want a thorough discussion of your visa options in Australia, book in a consultation with our registered immigration agents at www.bridgeaus.com.au.